Yes, 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 yes. Ridiculous. If it looks ridiculous on camera, it's because it is ridiculous. Right in front of me is a straight drop down into goodness knows what, so I need to tread very carefully. To my mind, this is find of the day. Forget Ninehead, this right here is find of the day.
Lay across the land, I will show you.
So I kind of envisaged that this video was going to be more of a relaxed vlog today. We've done quite a few punchy, quirky, informative style videos lately, so I thought today could be a relaxed one. But then I looked at the itinerary and what is along this canal.
There's quite a lot of like quirky stories and little snippets.
My name is Paul.
And I'm Rebecca.
Join us on today's canal adventure. So this is Tiverton Basin, and it marks the start of what is in use today of the Grand Western Canal. And there's all sorts here. There's a little heritage centre, there's a horse-drawn barge, and a little floating cafe. There's all sorts here.
Yeah,
which
not
is
open
really
at the moment. Well, it might be eventually, but not today.
So we're just heading down to the southern tip of this basin because there's a little, like a tunnel that comes up from below in the car park and comes up here. It's like an old entrance or something, wasn't it?
Yep.
So we're just going to see if we can see the top of part of that before we crack on and tell you some of the really fascinating stories about this canal. So it's kind of right here. So it's obviously blocked up because now it's just a picnic table with just concrete floor. So there used to be a stepway down here, down to the lower level. Should we go and do the canal? Let's go. So Rebecca's just been to the visitor centre and nicked a magazine.
Well, not been, it's not open, so outside there's a little thing we can get.
Which is great because that details all the open parts of this canal. But that's not what we're doing today. So there's a huge map about the open bits of this canal down where you can boat, but that's not what we're doing today. We're going to the abandoned bit of the canal.
Yeah.
Waytown Lime Kilns. So we're at Waytown, or we're let's say 8 miles further on than Tiverton. You may be wondering why we've jumped 8 miles of this canal. So as we said earlier, in 1814 this section of the canal was built, and it was completed, and it still exists today. And the reason why they built it so quick, within a sort of a 3 or 4 year period, is because it had no locks, no inclines, no lifts, nothing. It was just flat canal, roughly at the 95 metre contour. That's quite important, we'll come back to that shortly. But we've skipped the currently usable bit of the canal, which you can go on now in your pleasure boat and your horse-drawn barge. We've skipped that bit and we've come right away up to what is Waytown, the Waytown Lime Kilns, and we're now going to go on the abandoned bit of the canal because that's where the most interesting stories are. So we're coming up to the first interesting bit, and it's a tunnel. Now I'd fully envisaged being able to get into this tunnel because it's only 40 metres long, it's on the abandoned stretch of the canal, but it turns out it's not. I mean, I've even got my waders and a big stick to sort of wade my way in. The waders are in my bag just there, but actually it's about 5 or 6 feet deep water plus the silt.
Yep.
So I'm not getting in there, am I?
And a steep side.
And the other interesting thing as well is it's really small. Now I know that they built the next section of the canal at least as a tub boat canal, so they were going to have small tubs.
But that would make sense with the size.
Which would make sense because it's tiny, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
That's the first thing done. That's trees out of the river. Although I can't get the bit that's over that side because it's over that side. Questions? What is that for? So So here we are at the first stretch today for us of the abandoned part of this canal. We're just north of Loudswell. Now, as we said, that first section between Tiverton and Loudswell, the middle section, was all built at the 95-metre contour, and it was built by 1814. So they now had to think about the next phase, the next phases of connecting the Bristol Channel down to the English Channel and avoiding the whole need to go around Land's End and Cornwall, of course. That was the original intention of the canal. Now, a man called James Green soon became the head engineer, shall we say, of this canal, and he was tasked with a very, very important job of getting the canal down from 95 metres down to pretty much sea level just past Taunton. So he'd already done the Bude Canal, and he'd already worked with moving things up and down, not just locks. He'd built a really impressive incline, which was successful, and it worked. So the problem of getting from here in Loudswell down to Taunton was next on the cards, and that's probably the most interesting part of this story. So James Green decided to build a balance lift. In fact, he decided to build 7 of them along this next stretch of the canal. We couldn't find the first one at Greenham, it was long gone, so a quick church stop before we get to some of the good bits. So we thought we'd stop and show you Greenham Church because it's very beautiful. Tiny little church, really, really quaint. Come and have a look at this. I'm not religious or have any kind of faith at all, but do appreciate the architecture, the community, and the solace that this brings people, and did bring people in the past especially. Very, very beautiful. So it took another 15 or 16 years for things to actually get started. 1828, 1830, before they actually started building these lifts. James Green, as I said, who was responsible for doing that, pretty much started from a blank canvas. He had no blueprints to look at. He designed these lifts basically on philosophies that had gone before, the Anderson principle. And he decided to build 6 of them. 6 of them were needed. But before we get to the tangible lift a little bit further down the line, or the canal, the cut, shall we say, not the line, we're not doing railways today.
We're not doing railways today.
We've got something very different. We've got an incline. Now, James Green, again, had already built one of these inclines successfully on the Bude Canal. But it turns out that this incline wasn't quite as successful and held things up even more. So we're in this really beautiful little wooded bit. We found the bottom of the incline. So there's the water, there's the canal, full of its lovely stagnant water. We're going to head this way about 100 yards or so and see if we can find the actual incline. So this is the Wellisford Incline. This is the bottom of the incline. Up there is towards the top. Relatively short incline, but it did suffer a few problems, and as I say, it did cause the vast majority of the delay on this canal. Now, the reason being is because James Green had calculated perfectly the incline on the Bude Canal, and he had the weight ratio to the container for the water that would in turn balance the tub caisson. He had the weight to the caisson ratio perfectly fit, but for this he miscalculated it completely, and subsequently he had problem after problem with the weight balance. So that was great. So that's the incline. You can see the indentation in the field. You can see the bottom of the incline, there's some masonry left there. Here's obviously the pool at the bottom, and obviously the start of the canal further on. So I believe we've now missed 2 lifts in terms of they aren't there anymore. We're now going to go on to Ninehead Lift. Ninehead Lift is there, and there's a lot to see, so join us there.
Place your bare feet on the ground, let me hold you.
So we're now looking for a lift that we know exists. We're looking for the Ninehead Lift. It's recently been excavated and studied in many different ways. And here we are now on what appears to be the first section of this lift, which is an aqueduct over what looks like an old trackway of some kind. Now, we've looked on side-by-side maps just before we got here, and we are assuming that maybe this was to placate a landowner, because if you look north, it's a grand avenue up towards the Ninehead Manor. But it looks very grand, doesn't it?
It is very posh.
So they built this over the top of it in, what, 1836-ish, and then the railway came 4 years later, and they built that over the top of it. It's a real maze of junctions here. It's very beautiful. And ahead of us, more importantly, we've got the first aqueduct section of where James Green had his castle, and we'll go look at that in a second after we've taken some shots of the train that's about to go by, because we heard a beep. Very exciting. Here we go.
From the top of the mountain above your fear, I am here.
So we're not going to talk too much about the Ninehead lock because we're the Ninehead lift, because we're actually going to do a separate video on it. I think it's such a weird and wonderful thing that we're actually going to do a separate sort of a short, punchy, quick video on it.
More info.
But with a lot more info. But it's nevertheless a fascinating. Look at it.
It's quite impressive.
Yeah. So we just crossed over the main line there. We're just by the Alford, the Alford Inn, and we're looking for the Alford. Alford. God, we're
Is that what it says? Yeah, Alford. Look, it says the Alford Inn on the wall.
We're looking for the Alford. Oh my God. We're looking for the Alford lift. So it's probably about the 5th or the 6th of the 7 lifts along here. Now, we don't know how much of it exists. You can't even find the canal bed at the moment, can we? Because we're walking along an old trackway, but where the canal is, I don't know. So in front of me is the canal bed. I'm pretty sure that's quite clear. But again, where would this lift be? Because we're looking for a lift the size of the Ninehead one that we've already seen. Perhaps it's further on that way. That looks like more of a cutting there. Let's go and have a look. Found it, people. We found it. Well, we think we found it. All of a sudden, literally all of a sudden, we found a massive grate in here. Now, the Wikipedia article states that down by the telegraph pole you can see in the distance, that's where the Alford lift is, not here. But I'm now pretty sure it's here. There's a massive embankment just come next to us on this part. Somehow, people, we've got to get in there. We're going to do this. Alright, this looks ridiculous. If it looks ridiculous on camera, it's because it is ridiculous completely.
Echo your name into the
Here. Because that, without doubt, is the Alford boat lift.
10 million years and counting for
Try and find a
you. You don't need
way up that's not going to murder us.
about one thing.
So far,
I
haven't done that.
am here. Please don't worry
Ouch.
about one thing. I am here. Honey, don't worry about a thing. I'm still here.
Yes. Here we are. Wow. To my mind, this is find of the day. Forget Ninehead. This right here is find of the day. It's so well hidden in this hedge. You've got the, oh my goodness me, you've got the water below there, and you've got just hidden away here this crevice, this what doesn't, you wouldn't even take a second glance at this, but it's this masonry line hidden by nature, which has slowly reclaimed it. Right in front of me is a straight drop down into goodness knows what, so I need to tread very carefully. Okay, so now we're at the top of the boat lift. We're at the bit where the boats would have come into it, Just there in front of me to the right, you'll see where the boats would have come in here, and they'd have gone down to here, and they'd have gone left there, and they'd have gone into two caissons here, two boat lifts here. And use your imagination, because right up here by my hand would be a huge great wheel, and it would have chains on it, and maybe 2 or 3 of these, probably 3 or 4 actually, and they would hold the caissons and the boats, and they would be lifted up and down. Certainly that was the principle, of course. So from this, we're in the middle of this hedge. I say it's a hedge, it's just a whole tree line, but at the time of the year it's thick with brambles, and we are covered in little cuts and bits and pieces, and I've just stabbed Rebecca with another bramble. Right down there, 25-foot drop was what we found and we were looking for. It's been such a rubbish late May day, hasn't it? Yeah. It's been windy, raining, it's just been terrible for filming.
It's basically been a bit wintry.
It's been wintry at best, 10 degrees and we're nearly in June. But this here, that drop down there has made up for it. It really has made up for it. So we're going to leave you in peace. We've got a little bit of walking to do before we get to Taunton, which is only a couple of miles that way, so our journey has nearly come to an end. We thought it would be beautiful to end in this hedgerow, having found the Wellisford wheel. Wellisford wheel. You know, how many people know where this is? I don't know, because it's nowhere near where it's marked on the actual map, is it? So.
And you mean lift?
Lift, sorry.
Not wheel.
Well, wheels, because it's got wheel turning thingies.
It did, it does now.
No. Right, so we hope you enjoyed today's adventure along the canal. We're going to have another video come out soon, based purely just on the 9-head wheel.
Stop it!
Sorry.
Lock!
9.
No!
Lift!
Lift!
Right, we'll see you next week, people. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video and you want to watch more silliness from me and Rebecca about history and our vlogs, click on the subscribe button. We'd love you to.
And the notification bell.
Yeah, keep watching the videos. We enjoy making them, so we're not stopping anytime soon. We'll see you next week.